done, the times, the emails, everything. So so right off the bat, this is what your Skyslope is going to look a little bit different than mine because I have an admin Skyslope. So I have access to everybody's transaction. So if you have a transaction that you're having some troubles with, you can give me a call and I can help you with that too. A lot of times agents don't know how to cancel if they have a sale fail, they're not sure how to cancel things and stuff like that. So just if you can't figure it out, first of all, I want you to show you the support. And if you need support and you're not able to get us, or you just want to go directly to the people who know better about the platform than we do, you click on this little head right here. And this is where you can go. They automatically start chatting with you. When we first, I don't know if they still do this, but when we first got this tool, we were in a chat with them and Paul was rude and hung up on him because someone came into our office. And so later on that night, they called him and they said, "Is everything okay? We got disconnected. I just want to make sure everything's okay." And he said, "Oh yeah, I was just rude." And then about a week later, we got a Starbucks gift card from them, just apologizing that we had a problem or anything like that. So they're just very responsive. They're there 24/7. So if you need help, go to them. There's also a place here where you would click on I'm an agent and you can browse articles. It'll show you videos on how to do things. Everything is on here on how to do it if you just want to sit and watch the videos. So those are the couple of places that you can go for support. Obviously, Heather and I use it most probably in the company as far as the corporate, because we're on it all the time working on Skyslope. So if you have questions, you can call either one of us too and we'll help. So first of all, I want to show you that there's a way to integrate your zip forms with your Skyslope account. And what you want to do is you'll go over to your name here and then you click on My Account and you'll see all of these. And this is actually where you can go in and you can add a signature, so you don't have to type it in every time you send an email from Skyslope. You can put your signature in there. You can set up your notifications of how you get things. I just did this yesterday and I got a ton of emails, so but that's typical for me. This is where you can set up your notifications, change your password, but the integrations is where you want to get it. And what you want to do is if you see this and it says disabled, it means that you haven't integrated your zip forms with your Skyslope account. So what you do is you click on it and then it's going to ask you for your login for zip forms, and you'll just put that in there, and now you'll be able to see your zip forms within the Skyslope platform, which this is my favorite part, because then you don't have to go outside of any other platforms. You can stay in there. You don't have to save PDFs if you use the DigiSign form, which that's the digital signature that's inside this. And you don't have to leave. Like in DocuSign, that was one of pain for GC because we're trying to do things pretty fast if we can. And sending for signature was a little laborious because you'd have to save the PD and put it into the DocuSign, take it out, and then put it into the transaction platform. So we offer DigiSign to our agents for $60 a year if you decide that that's what you want to do. It's not an expectation. You can use DocuSign. I used it quite a bit before we got this platform. So this is where you'd want to enable your zip forms account. Anytime you want to go back to the main home, I always click on the logo, and then like I said, mine's going to look a little bit different. Yours will just might not have as many icons on there. You have a question, Mark?
You know, I go through RMLS for my zip forms. So now you're saying you can go here and...
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to show, but I don't have it enabled in mine. But what you can do, I don't know if all of you, let me log into the RMLS, because this is a really cool thing that just they just changed or added this feature. So let me see. Let's say you want to make an offer on a product, on a listing, and you'll go in. You're working in the RMLS, so you're going to pick the one that you're going to make an offer. I'm just picking one. If you scroll all the way to the bottom and you see this ORIF button. First of all, before you do that, you need to go into RMLS and go to the toolkit and do your preferences. I think that's what it's called. User preferences. That's where you would enable, you'd want to log in your zip forms login on that also. So you add that in there, and I'm not sure which one it is. I don't have a full ARMA list because I'm not an agent. I have access because I'm an admin person, so I wouldn't show up on here, but there's a place where you can put your zip forms login and it will integrate with the ARMA list and Skyslope. So what I want to show you is you go to a PDF and you find that ORF button on the bottom. Let me go to one. And when you click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to try to do it, but I don't have mine hooked up to Paul's anymore. But what it's going to do is it's going to log you into zip forms. It's going to grab a cover sheet. It's going to put all the information that they pull from the RMLS, and it's going to show up on that cover sheet. It's going to have the seller's names, the MLS number, the listing agent, all the information that you need to make an offer on it. And then you can just go into your zip forms and it's already ready there, and then you just add your documents that you're going to use for the offer. So if you have a sale agreement, you're going to add a sale agreement. And then all you have to do is go into your cover sheet and fill out your information, unless you already have that auto-populated in there. And it just makes things so much faster. So once you add the sale agreement in the zip forms, it's going to populate the information that they pulled in from the RMLS on that ORF button. So then what you're going to do is you're going to go into Skyslope and you go to Working Documents and you click on this Zip Forms Plus icon. And see, I have Paul's zip forms in my account. So now I have this tool here. So let's see if I'm working on, I know he has a test one in here somewhere. Here. So what it's going to do is it'll pull the cover sheet. I don't know if it's on here or not, but it'll give all the information. But then what you can do is you can literally go into Skyslope and send, if you have DigiSign, send directly from here for signature. So let's say I have to send an offer over. We'll just do the residential sale agreement. You click on the documents that you're going to send to the clients for signature, and then you would just click on DigiSign, and it's going to upload it into DigiSign, and then you can send for signature right there. So it makes it a lot smoother. The only caveat on that is when you go into zip forms, let me go into zip forms so I can show you. I have a few passwords. Okay, when you go into the test, the only caveat is you want to add the documents in here that you're going to use. You can add them, but if you're going to type on them, it's easier to get it all set up in zip forms and then go into Skyslope to be able to find those documents that you already have everything written on. You can do it within Skyslope. Let me go back there. But it's just a little bit more clunky. So you can create one from here too. You can create a transaction, and then you can open zip forms from here too. But just adding the documents that you want and typing on them is better to do it within the zip forms. But then you go back into the Skyslope and you find them already taken care of inside Skyslope. And then, so like I said, you would just send it for signature. You click on here, send it, and it's going to load it up into DigiSign. And if let's say you're making an offer and you don't have the transaction already in Skyslope, which we don't want you to put them in there until you actually have a deal, a signed deal, accepted offer, because then you're creating a lot of things. One thing about Skyslope is you can't delete anything. If you upload documents from a different transaction into someone else's transaction, they're going to stay there. There's no way. I can show you what to do with them if you do that on accident, but you can't delete it, which it's a good thing, because then you're never going to lose your documents if you need them. So because I don't have a transaction in here already, I'm going to choose no property. And now it's going to take me to the next slide where this is the document that I clicked on that I wanted to send for signature, and it shows up here. But let's say you're making an offer and you have a pre-approval letter that you want to add to your offer because you want to send it all together in one thing, and this is where you'd want to do that. And we'll just say I have one on my desktop, so I can go to the desktop version and I'll find a document. me see here. I'll just add it. I don't know if it'll take a screenshot. No, it might not. Let me find my blank for Skyslope. Okay. So then that's how you would add the pre-approval letter, if you wanted to add that, or if you have a personal letter from your clients that you want to get over to the sellers, they wrote a letter to them, you can add that here too, so that once everything is signed, all those documents will join together and become one PDF. And I know you guys get those all the time from other agents, and then you have to split them out, so I'll show you how to do that too. But so then you just click, you can organize the documents here if you want them in a certain order to go to your clients. Upload more documents here, and then once you got what you want, then you click next, and this is where you put in, see what it did is it populated from the cover sheet the client's information, and if you have the emails in there, it's going to populate the emails, which makes it really nice because then you don't have to go searching around from that. It populates from the zip forms cover sheet. So I'm going to choose who I want to send for signature, and I'm not going to send it to them. So so I always put, when we send something for our agents, we always put the agent first to get the document. Once they look at it, then and they sign or whatever they need to do, then it moves on to the clients, and then the clients will sign. We do that because we want to make sure that what we're sending is what you wanted us to send. If there's any changes, please don't sign it. You just don't sign it, then you send us a message or a ping or call us and say, hey, I need you to fix something on the sale agreement. And then we can go back in there and pull it out, fix it, and send it, and it saves it all in there. And then you're not sending something that you're gonna have to fix later. And then if you had, let's say, so when we do that, when we add the agent to it, we can pick an order of how things go to there. So let me add the agent. There is one. It's not on there. Let's say I didn't have the agent on there, so I'm gonna just add Paul here. And then this is where you would choose who they are. We're going to say he's the agent, and then he needs to sign. Right here, since I put add signer group, I can choose if I want him to sign first or second. I will say first, and then he needs to sign. If you just want him to get a copy, then you can choose that feature here too. So some agents use this, and they'll put the listing agent as getting a copy when they send an offer over. That's fine, but please follow up with a phone call, because if you're sending an offer and it's time sensitive and you want to make sure they get it, you want to call them and say, hey, I just sent you an offer over, or you should be getting an offer, because once the client sign, it will send out to them. But just call and let them know, because sometimes it might go to their junk mail. I'm just always worried if agents just rely on that and not call. So make sure you call so they are aware that you're sending something to them in case it goes to their junk mail or the wrong place. Oh, I didn't add him, but anyway, so then I would add him to the you can move people around here. So if I wanted one, we've had it where we've had divorced couples and you have to send them individually, so then you can do one person first and the second person. We even had someone say that they didn't want to see their wife's signature on there, so please send it to him first. So it just, funny things happen, And then what you do is you'll click next, and it's going to populate the documents, and this is where you add the signatures and stuff. So this is much like DocuSign, thank you. Where it has this, you just choose from up here on the titles of things that you're going to be doing. So if I want a signature, then I would just click down here. The difference with this one is, instead of going up and adding another one, and I don't know how DocuSign is, but you can actually click on this little drop down menu, because there's two people that need to sign, and I can change their name. So if you do that, make sure you have the right name in the box that you're sending to. You want that person to sign. And then you choose date and sign, or you choose date and time, and you just put it over there and then send it for signature. And when you click send, it's not it's not lighting up, because it knows that there's another person I have to put a signature for on there, because I put two people in there. So I have to go back over there and add this next person. Nathan. I did them backwards, but that's okay. And then what you do is you click send. You got it all ready to go. If you wanted to put something, let's say you needed your client to read something on the document, and so I know DocuSign has this too, but you would click here and you could put the box over here and write them a little note and say, please read this. Let's say you're trying to point something out in the sale agreement to make sure that they see it. but you don't want it to be printed on the sale agreement. This is just a way for you to write a little note for them to say, take a look at this. Does this look right or whatever? And it won't print on the document. It's just telling them that there's something that they need to read. One of the things that was funny when I first got on here is I didn't realize that if you're clicking around in here, it's going to put boxes everywhere. And I learned that the hard way. So in order to get rid of them, you just click on the box, this little red X shows up, and then you just get rid of them all. And I was panicked, and of course when you panic, then you're clicking even more, and I had a whole bunch of boxes I had to clean. So then after you get everything there, another thing is the checkbox. Please don't rely on the checkbox. That's the only downfall of this program, is if you send a document to your client and you're relying on them to check it, half the time they might click on it, but it's just not a consistent thing to rely on. So if you're sending something that has a checkbox, in the TC department we do it two ways. We either add it to the document before we even send it to the client. We ask the agent, are we accepting or rejecting or whatever? What box do you want me to check? I'll check it ahead of time. And that's okay, because when your clients are getting the document, they see that it's checked and they'll sign. If they don't want it to be checked, then they don't sign. But you just want to make sure that you check that checkbox, because a lot of times I'll get a offer over, and like the counter offer doesn't have a checkbox, and then we have to go and chase signatures and all of that, so it just makes it a hassle. So if you just make sure you do that, or what you can do, if you know that you can set yourself to sign up, you go in here first and add the checkbox in a certain area, and you can check it, and then it goes to the client, and then they'll go through. So that's another way to do it. Those are the only two ways that we know of to kind of bypass it, because if you check it right here, goes to the client, they might uncheck it, or it's just not reliable. Obviously I tried to talk to them about and explain it to them at Skyslope, but they haven't fixed it yet because they don't use it every day. So if you want to just, this full name is if you forgot to put their name, let's say up here, and if you got to put their name on there, then you can just add that. It's just going to type their name how it is. And when the document is done, then the name will be there. The read only, I showed you. The writable, if you have to put something in there and you want to, let's say you forgot to put the company name in there, you can pick this up and move it. Whoops, that's not. I don't know why it doesn't always work, but let me start over again. I'm going to do a writable, and I'm going to add it there. And then let's say I know I see this a lot on disclosures. The agent forgets to put their company name at the bottom page. So you can do it this way, and you just type in More Realty, and that'll show up. You always want to make sure the box is sitting on top of the line that you're signing. So if you move it up here, I always just sit it right on top of the line where I want them to sign. And there is one font that it seems like everybody chooses, and it's a little bit bigger. We called and asked them to reduce the size, but they didn't reduce it that much. But it's a kind of a scribbly one, and it'll go off the page. So just be aware of that. Make sure you have the box over enough to, or if they choose that one, it will fit the whole thing on there. When you got everything ready, you're going to click send, and this is where you type your message to your client. We always, everything, the TC department and actually corporate always goes by the address and the full address. Like if there's units or but numbers, townhome numbers or anything like that, please include that, because we have several. It's amazing to me. I go in there and I search properties, and I see that there's several agents that have either bought and sold the property, because we get all the archives and stuff. So I see everybody, and there's several agents that have been at the company, been on the same property sometimes. So so you just want to make sure you have that. Then you type the little note to them and send it, and it will go to them. They'll pop up in their email, and then they choose a font and signature. Have all of you had one sent to you? I'm sure you've had at least one time. Has anybody not had one sent to them?
What are you asking?
If they've sent, when you ask you to sign digitally. I know you have, because Paul does it at the beginning when you sign your paperwork usually. So that's how they do it. If you want to know the process, you can send yourself an email to sign something, just so you can describe it to your client, because a lot of times, especially the older group, they get a little nervous when they don't use computers that much. It makes them feel pretty intimidated, so just explain it to them. If you had to make a change on this before you sent it, you can go back. It only lets you go back so far, but you can go back and let's say I didn't want to choose, I had to fix this document. So then what I would do is I would uncheck it, and then I would go and add the other document that I fixed, and that would be checked there, and then I could send it for signature that way. Does that make sense? If you go back too far, then you're out of the whole thing and you got to start over. And that's the only bummer thing. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay, I'm going to show you how to put in the listing. And I got to find my paperwork here. So the thing that really messes people up a lot of times is if you have a listing and you hadn't used Skyslope before, you always have to start with the listing. And then once you do that, and you get everything ready to go, and then when you get an offer, there's a box that says accept contract. And if you don't see that, that means there's something incomplete in your checklist that you need to fix really quick before you are able to accept that contract. Once you accept that contract, it's going to move the file out of the listings into transactions. So when you go back in and you have the offer in there, you're going to start going to the transactions icon instead of the listing icon. Does that make sense? So a lot of agents will have a listing and then they get an offer and they don't know that they're supposed to put it in the listing side. And the reason we do that is because it pulls the listing documents and the offer documents all together in one file. If you have a listing and then you create a transaction when you get an offer, then they're not going to be connected. And we want them to be connected because if the sale fails, there's a way where you can click a button and it will put all the listing documents back into the listing side, and it will take that transaction out so you don't have to upload all your listing documents all over again. Does that make sense? So let me go in here and we'll start the listing. We're going to create a listing. And this is a new thing. It's not my favorite. You used to be able to just go in and start doing it, but they have this little assistant because Skyslope decided that they were going to have a TC company too. But you guys don't see that because we told them that we would not be with them if they were competing with us. So just so you know. So you go in and enter the listing, and I'm going to I always pick on Paul because it's easier. You guys won't have to do this part because it'll just automatically put your information in there. I don't even find Paul. Let me do.
Nobody can see Paul's, remember?
I'll just do Scott Galloway. And then here's where you put in the property address. I'm just going to put in mine because
And we can all go to Denise's house.
yeah. If you have a unit, this is where you'd want to put this. At this point, when it says switch to manual entry, that means that it won't keep asking these questions. You can just go in there and do it, which that's usually what I do, but I'm going to show you this way because this way you'll get it. So let's go. Then you should have, this is where the checklists show up, or what type of listing you have. And the reason it's asking you that question is because we have specific checklists for each type of transaction, and it will ask, let's say it's a vacant land, it's going to ask you for a vacant land residential sale agreement. So I'm going to choose residential. You should, if you're not licensed in Washington, you won't see the Washington ones, but if you are, if you're dual license, you should see Oregon and Washington. And then we'll put the price. I'll do $350. And so this is where you put in your commission. So if you're doing a 5% listing, then you would put 2.5 on each side. If that's what you're offering, you might be offering less and more for you as the listing agent. Or if you had a flat rate that you're going to do, you can switch to flat rate and it will just be a number, but you have to do it on each side if that's what the choice is. You can add a co-list agent to it also. I'm just going to go back to percentage. And then you're going to this will be the listing when it goes active. We'll make the 26th, and then we're going to expire on December 26th. What year was the property built? I don't remember, so I'm just going to type in a number. And then the source of the deal, the reason it asks you that question is if you want to keep track of where your leads are coming from, this is where you'd put that information. The TC department, unless you specify where it goes to, we just put personal all the time. So unless it's an office lead, that's what you would want to put in there, that it's an office lead. We need you to put that in there because it is a different pay scale as far as if there's referral.
The lease program.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll put in the seller. I'll put my son. I guess could be. If you have an additional seller, or if it's a company that's selling, then you could switch to a company. It'll ask that name, and it's just doing that because it's going to put this information into the contact section. Okay, does everything look okay? If it doesn't have the right property, and I've had that happen to me on here, you don't say create my listing and you're going to have to go back and check something. Please give us a call or contact Skyslope, because I've had that where if you don't put the unit number when you're entering it in here, and let's say there's more than one, it's happening with the manufactured homes, they all have the same address, but they have different lots. And it pulled up one because the person didn't put the lot number in there and it wasn't the one that I needed. So just make sure that you look at that and make sure it's your information.
If it wasn't correct, you could just go back.
Yeah, you can go back, or if you're not sure how to fix it, then you might need to contact support or call one of us. So now if you can see up here, it's putting all these little tabs up at the top. These are the tabs that you work through. If you go to the listing tab, this is where you would put, let's say you had a price change, you always want to go to the listing tab and change the price, because if you don't, that affects the commissions. This is where Nikki goes every time that she gets a check. This is where she goes for her information, and if you don't have the right price in there, then it's going to say a different amount of commission, and she might give you a call and say, which one is it? So you just want to go in here and you can change the price. Once you change the price, you always want to click next, because otherwise it won't stay there and it'll just go back to the previous price. If you have a referral, this is where you want to put that information. You can add the person here. If you start typing it in, give them all the information that you can. And then you tell them the referral amount that you're getting or giving. We usually this is where you put our transaction coordination fee. I don't think there's anything else. Also, if you're changing let's say you're extending the expiration date, then you want to make sure you put that in here too, because it's asked that information. Because then otherwise people get freaked out because they forget to change their date of the expiration, and it expires in Skyslope, and they'll call us and say, my file's expired, what do I do? And it's not a nightmare. It just is telling you. So then it's going to take you to the contact section. It populated, and then if you were using the zip form things, you'd already have this information. If you did that thing where you go all the way through, not for a listing, but for buyers. If you have any notes, so I tell all the agents, please put all of the information that you have, because if you're going to go back 5 years, something comes up and the person wants to ask you a question, and you go into the file and you don't have the contact information, or if you have to contact them for some reason, just please put all of that in there, because you're not going to remember it. You might not even have that information, and it's a way, even for the company, because we're required to keep your documents for 7 years, and if you're not here, we need to be able to go in there and find the information that we need for the file. So anything to do with your transaction, please always load up in Skyslope, because then if you ever hopefully you never have to go back, but if you do, then you have everything in one place and you don't have to worry about searching in different locations for it. If you have a home warranty, you can add that here. Miscellaneous contact is, let's say maybe it's a trustee and you want another person to add to it because they're part of the transaction, or but they're not necessarily a seller, or sometimes we'll have people that have elderly people that have their children on there that are going to respond for them and help them, so I always put that in there too. Just have that information, because it's important to be able to have it all in one place. Especially if you call us and say, hey, can you go on my file? I need you to send a document really quick for somebody. We'll do that on occasion. Don't make a habit of it, but if you need us to send for signature, we can. And then you click submit. Maybe it's not going to let me. Okay. And it should go to the checklist. Oh, it's thinking. Okay, so this is the checklist, and this checklist is all these documents that say required is what the company requires you to have in the listing. we always want you to have it, but there are additional things that you can add. Like if you have marketing for this listing, you can put that in here, and you have to have it approved by one of the principal brokers first, and then you can put it in here and have it, so you have it all with that. So I just think it's great to have a full flat file, so you can go back, oh yeah, this is what I sent to that client. You know, I did a postcard for their listing, and you have all that stuff in here. If you did a CMA, you can put it in here. If you have, obviously, HOA documents, you'd put it in here. So this is the checklist. If there's documents that the principal broker doesn't need to see, such as receipts or something like that, then you don't want to add them to the checklist, because they don't need to see that. They're not going to review it. And everything else stays in the document section. And the document section is where anytime, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to upload a listing, my listing documents here, find the class. Listing docs. You just find it on your desktop and you upload it, and it's going to sit here and bring in the document. This admin and trash, so remember when I said if you upload the wrong documents, what you can do is you can, let's say I uploaded the wrong one, I could click on here and I can go up here and I'm going to move it to the trash, okay? And then it won't show up in my document section. Don't panic though, because I can go into the trash and I can move it back. But if you have documents that you don't want in there, or you're just trying to clean up the document section, this is the only one thing. We had a different platform where I could label everything as I put it in, and you can't do it. So if you want your documents specifically labeled a certain way, I would label them as you put them in. So if you're putting it, like let's say I have a disclosed limited agency, or like this one says listing docs, then I know what it is. It's hard to, otherwise you have to hover, and you can hover over the I and it's going to pop up so you can see what document it is if you're searching for a document. And I have agents that will ask me, please clean up the document section so I can find my documents easier. So that's the way to do it. So I'm going to add these to the checklist, and so because it's all one PDF, I'm going to split it. And so this is nice to have two screens when you do this, because what I do is I usually have the document that I have on my desktop opened up, because I can't see very well. This is really small to me. You can make it bigger so that you can see it, but it doesn't keep the whole document there. So I'll have it next side by side, and then I just look at what's coming up next. So this is what you do is you'll go over here and you're going to name the document, and you might want to take a look at the checklist to see what they call them, because it's going to auto-populate. So we usually see how it's populating here. It's a disclosed limited agency for sellers. That's what it says right here. It's page 1. This is page 1. So I just click on that document. Then I click down, and this is the listing agreement. So I go over here and I type in listing, contract, and data input forms. Just so you know, we require the data input forms. Evidently there are some companies that don't require them. I'm not sure why, but we require them to be uploaded to the principal broker because your clients are signing them. Basically, anytime a client signs a document, you want to add it to the checklist, because the principal broker should review anything that's pretty much signed. And I know that this one is several pages long, so I can go down and see these numbers are changing at the top. So as I go through the list, see, now I came up to the seller's property disclosure, so I'm going to go back to number 6. So what you want to do is you want to go over and make sure that this says number 6 on here. So what it's going to do is going to pull those documents over to the checklist, and only those particular ones, number 2 through 6. Then I'm going to go to number 7, and that's the seller's property disclosure. So I start typing in property disclosures, and there it is. And I know that is 7 pages long. So I just always do it so I know my numbers are right, is to go to the last page. Then I want to make that 7 to 13, and that's all the documents I have. I can take this off and see so I've got everything split up. It's going to go to the checklist. It's going to split everything up and show up in the right place, hopefully. If you choose the wrong document on here and it goes to the wrong place, you can delete it in there and then redo it if you need to.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll probably get caught. So now I'm going to click split and assign. And now it's doing the magic. It says good job. And you can either return to the document section if you had more documents you wanted to add, or you can go to the checklist. And I always go to the checklist to make sure. So see, it split it up, and it has a little paper clip, so that tells me there's a document on there, and you can click on the paper clip and look at the document. And then, let me see. If you want to, let's say you're in the checklist and I have my RMLS printout on my desktop, then I could actually add it to the desktop straight from here and not have to go into the document section. So I'm just going to click attach, upload document, and then I'm going to find the document that I want to add to it. I'll just do this one, blank for Skyslope. And now what it's going to do, instead of going through the document section, it went straight to the checklist, and you didn't have to go into the document section and add it to it. You could add it straight from your desktop, or if you have it in Dropbox or Google Docs, wherever you're keeping that. So this tells you that the principal broker hasn't reviewed it, so it's going to look like that. I think yours looks a little bit different. I think it says review or something on there. I'm not sure, because mine's obviously different. So now I'm going to go back to the document section. One of the things you notice is here's that PDF with all those documents, but now that I split it up, those documents showed up individually in the document section. So if I didn't have anything in that PDF that I didn't want and I wanted to clean up my document section, I just click on this and I could move it to the trash. Now I only have documents that are attached to the checklist. The way you can tell that they're attached is because they have this paper clip on there. But the reason to kind of keep it clean is, let's say I uploaded a disclosed limited agency in the file to send to my client, and once they sign it, I have one that's unsigned in there and one that's signed, and they're labeled the same way. The way to tell which one you're looking at is just look at the paper clip, or you can use the eyeball to look at it. If they come in and they're turned a wrong way or something, this is the way to rechange them. Let's say I had that document. Let me put that back in there, and I'm going to add this back up there so I can change the name so you can see what it looks like. So let's say I had a document in here and I wanted to keep it there, but I wanted to rename it. You can click that and you're going to rename it and call it something else. And I could put it, I'll just say signed. I'll just leave it like that. And then you click, it's funny that they have a little floppy disk. Some people probably didn't even know what that is in the younger days, but that's how you save it. You save the name and it's going to stay right there. If you're going, let's say you need to send an email to an agent, or sometimes agents will put their offer in here, and that's another reason why you want to make sure you put the transactional stuff together instead of doing an individual listing and transaction, because everything's all in one place and it's just easier to find everything. But let's say you wanted to send something for signature directly from here, you just click on the document that you're sending and it goes, click DigiSign, it's going to take you through the whole process of signing. And it looks the same, and say, oh, I forgot to add that document, so then I would choose that one and it's going to add that to that. So that's why you have two windows to look at. These are the documents that you have available to you. These are the documents that you're actually sending for signature. And then, do all of you know how to use DigiSign? No? Okay. So then what you're going to do, this is the contact, this is another reason why you want to put all the information about your contacts. So if you don't have an email, then I'm just going to have to guess, or I'm going to have to get it and add it here. But if you add it in the contact section, then it's going to automatically show up here. So, but if you don't, then you can edit here, and I'll just put Denise. And see how it tells the role, he's the seller, and then he needs to sign. So then, why is it there? So now his name populated over here. If you have, let's say you have another person that needs to sign, or you want them to get a PDF, then you can add them as a new recipient. Hello?
Did he get tired?
Not yet.
Sure?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
If you needed to add someone else, then you could add them there, and you can make sure, put their name information in here, and then you can send them a copy if you need to send them something for a copy. And then you go through the process, you click next. Now these documents are going to show up that we need to send for signature. And then you choose whatever you're sending. If it's signature, then you set it here. Always make sure that when you put it in the contact section, you want to put the name of how they're signing it, because otherwise they're gonna change it, or it just makes it easier. So if he was signing with his middle initial, then I would want to put that in the contact section so that when it comes to the signing and I send for signature, he won't have to change his name on the documents. So I always make sure I have, however they're gonna sign it, and I'll usually ask the client, if they're signing with their middle initial, or when you hire the TC department, we have a thing where you fill out and you put that name as how you want it to be signed. And then if there was more than one person, that person would populate down here and I could change the name. Let me go add somebody here so you can see 2 people signing. He's the agent. If he was just going to get a copy, this is where I could change it to receive copy, or you could do need sign and you save it, and now you see his name populating. Let's say I wanted to send it to Cole first and Paul second, then I could add a signer group here. And it says, see who signed second. So this is a way to you can move the names around if you need to. So I add it, Cole's going to get signed first. Once he signs, then it's going to go on to Paul, and then he signs. Be aware of that, because if you have something time sensitive and we send it to you first, then you got to know that until you look at it and sign it, it's not going to go on to your client. So make sure that if you do any kind of order of who signs what, then it's going to go to the first person and then the second person once the first person signs. You just checking on?
Sorry. Well, I have a couple interviews from Keller Williams.
Oh, nice,
so
Chris.
We're talking about the LEADS program. So instead of coming from me, it's going to come from somebody who actually works it.
Nice.
Yep.
So here's, then after you get everything situated, who's going to sign what, if somebody's going to get a copy, that name will show up down here. I could change it to where Paul gets a copy. Or I could just drag it down there and say, oh, he doesn't need to sign anything, he just needs a copy. But I was going to show you if he needs to sign, then I'll show you the box. So we'll click on signature. Cole's signing, but I need Paul to sign. So then here's the drop down. You choose his name, and then just make sure that you always have the person that you want to sign in the right place with that right name. Because you can have, it'll just sign the wrong name and then you'll have to fix it anyway. All of these are pretty much self-explanatory. You have date side, date and time. If you forget to use the time, on some documents, I just recommend using date and time all the time. Some agents don't like to. When I'm sending out an offer, I'll make sure that I just put the date on just when they're initialing each page, but when they sign the last page, I put the date and time, because then you might get a pushback from a principal broker if they don't see the time of when it's been accepted or anything. So just make sure you do that. The writable, like I showed you already, you can write things in there if you wanted to write something on there. Read only, it's a note to your client. Full name, if you just had a place where you just had to put their name but you didn't have to have them sign it, you could just use the full name thing and put their name in the place where their shows up just as their name, and then the check box. And so now we've got it in the place and it shows up. I'm going to send it. I'll type the information down that I want to send to them. When we send it to the clients on behalf of an agent, we'll say, Marv asked me to send this to you for signature. Please call Marv if you have any questions, because we only put the information back to you. If they have questions about the signature thing and you don't know how to do it, then you can refer them to us and we'll help them. And then you send for signature, and then they'll get an email and it comes in and they sign. So let's get out of there. So my listing is all done, ready to go. I'm going to go back in there. If you want to look at them, you can either use this search button up here. If you search up here, it's going to pull up anything you've had canceled, archived, active, expired. It should pull up all of your information. But like I said, I get everybody in here. So now I see this is all pending. And I'm going to, just for the purpose of showing you the accept button, I have the ability to not require things. Let me see. Or I can accept them. Only the reviewing broker should do that. But sometimes if you're in a panic, we can accept them. Because what I'm trying to achieve is, see, after I got all of that, that means that you've gotten all your stuff done, you did it all right, yay, you don't have to worry about it until you get an offer. And then once and if there is something missing, that button will not show up. So you need to fix whatever needs to be fixed before that button will show up. It's kind of pushing you to make sure you have the right documents in there. So then you want to click accept contract because you got an offer. So then when you do that, now it's taking you into the transaction side of things. See how it says transaction, but notice that because I don't have all the information filled in here, it's not giving me any more tabs up here yet. I have to fill everything in that has a red dot before I can get the tab to come up on the top. So we're going to do, if you don't have an MLS number, you can just put zeros in there. Anything that has a red dot is required in order to move forward. The checklist type, that means if it's a commercial lease, listing sold, residential buyer, short sale, any of these, this is determining what documents are going to be required. So you want to choose the right checklist, because if you don't choose the right checklist, then you have to change after you've already uploaded all the documents. It's going to make you redo the upload on the documents all over again when you change the checklist back to where it was supposed to be. So I'm just going to put listing sold residential buyer, sale price $350. You get enough zeros. It'll still ask you for is this an office lead? If it is, you push yes. If not, no. Closing date will be August 10th. Acceptance date is the day we accepted it. I get everything. Yep, if you don't have everything chosen on the red dots, it won't let you move forward. So then I'm going to click next. Now it pulled up the contacts tab up at the top. So this is where you're going to add the buyer's name. Put my kids' names. In there. And put their email address in there. And then you click save. And then you'll see this, the next button. So you can click that, or you can actually just click over here and go to the next one. But it's going to take you through the process. And it wants you to have these things in there before it will let you go forward and add another tab at the top. So you have to have these things. Let's say you get an offer and you're not sure who the escrow officer is. We have auto-populated a TBD. So if you search up here, if you're working with someone on a regular basis, their contact information will eventually show up in there. So if you're searching for them, you can just do it in the search contacts, or TBD, to be determined, because we don't know who the escrow officer is. That happens to us a lot in the CC department until the agent gives it to us. So it's going to put that in there, and that's just going to hold it so we can move forward without, because we don't have that information. So I'm just going to click save, and you click next, and you're going on to the agent representing buyer. It wants the phone number, so if you don't know the phone number, which I hope you can, you just put zeros or numbers in there, and then the company. Save. It doesn't require you to have the lender or the home warranty or a miscellaneous contact if you want to move forward and you don't have any thing like that. But if you want to add that, I would add the lender in there, even if it's not your lender, just so that you know that he's part of the equation and you have their contact information if you have to send them emails. Because anything you put in the contact section, you can use to send emails through Skyslope also. And then miscellaneous contacts, sometimes I'll put, if the escrow officer has an assistant that wants to be a part of it, I'll put their name. Or if they have another transaction coordinator on the other side, I'll put their information in there. But that's not something required to move forward, so I'm just going to click submit. Now it's back to the commission structure. This is where you'd want to make sure if there's a referral on it for some reason, you put that here. If you have anything weird with your commissions, and I can't really think of an example, but anytime, this is where Nikki goes when she gets the check. She looks in here to see, okay, do these numbers match what the check says? If it doesn't, she's going to be calling you. If you have something that the reason why it's not matching, let's say, home warranty, if that's usually taken, you want to handle that at escrow, so you put that on your escrow instructions and they'll just take it out of there, out of your commission before it even comes here usually. But just to make sure, if you have any breakdown, let's say you have a co-list and you're gonna give them something. Just type message in here so that she knows something's different with the check and it's not straightforward transaction. If you don't have anything that you don't communicate with us on your commission, could delay your check, so just be aware of that. Nobody likes to have it late. But I filled everything out, so now I'm going to click submit. And now we are to the checklist, and these are the required documents. We always need either proof of the funds or pre-approval, and it's not saying it's required, because if the principal broker goes through and when she reviews, and if you haven't uploaded that, she's going to make it required. So just be aware of that you know it's going to come, that you have to have it, either a proof of funds or a pre-approval letter. All of these other documents on the side here are ones that are possibilities that might be part of the transaction, but you don't necessarily need it. If you have a weird document that's not a common one that you have, but it needs a signature and it needs the principal broker to review, you can kind of, if it's an addendum or something like, or let's say you get builder paperwork, which is always a nightmare, obviously, because you never know. You just want to, what I do, and I don't know if Becca was here, I'd ask her. She's the one that does the review. But what I do is I try to look at the documents, and if it's addendum, I'll put them in the addendum section. Some agents might load up the whole thing and just let them review it that way. If there's disclosures, I put it under disclosures. And if you look, you can split it up, and it says other docs requiring review. If you have a backup offer, that's where you put that, so that you have it within the file, and if you have to use it, it's already there and ready to go. There's other disclosure information, so if you have that builder paperwork and there's disclosures in there, you can upload it there. If you're not really sure, upload it to wherever you think might work best, and then write a note to the principal broker. This section in the middle is where you can leave comments for them and communicate with Becca or whoever's reviewing. And I encourage you to do that. Like, a lot of times if an agent sends us a document, it's missing a signature, and I see that because we review everything before we put it in. I don't like to get the rejections either, so I try to review it, make sure it's fixed before I put it in there, but obviously I can't control that. So what I'll do is I'll say, I know line 10 is missing, and I have that out for signature, just so she knows that we're aware of it and we're trying to get it fixed. And that way she'll still reject it and it will say incomplete, but at least you have a note there that you're aware that it's missing something. And you click save once you type a note. So when she gets the review, once we upload the documents, then she'll pull up this residential sale agreement, and the note will pop up, and she'll know that there's something missing already, and she'll just and put whatever. She might even send you a note back, but just communicate with her here. If you have something specific that you need to tell her about a document. I don't know what those examples, usually I just write if there's missing something and I know it and I have it out for signature, and I'll put it back in there when I can. So let me go here, and I can do the same thing that I did. See, it has all the listing documents. So if this sale failed, then when you cancel this sale fail, it'll say, would you like to renew your listing documents? And you say yes, and then it's going to move back into the listing section, and all your listing documents are there, reviewed. You don't have to have them upload them again. They're already reviewed. It just sits there and waits again until you have another offer. I'll just do a quick thing, because you guys already saw this in the listing, but it's about the same thing. So I'm uploading an offer, and then I'm going to split this offer because I know it's all one PDF. If you don't need, let's say you're not representing the buyer, so you don't necessarily need the disclose limited agency, but the agent had sent it to you and you don't want to add it to the checklist. You don't have to add it to the checklist, but if you want to, you can. But if I want to just skip that document, then I'm just going to go to number 2, and I'm going to change this to number 2. Or I don't have the end one, so then I type in residential sale agreement. Choose that one, and I know it's about 11 pages long. 12. So then I'm going to go 2 through 12. Then it changes this one to 13 right here, and I know that's professional inspection addendum. And that's it. I only have 13 documents, so I don't need this line. You don't have to do anything with it, but I always click it off. So I've got all my documents in their area, and I'm going to split and assign. It's going to take it to the checklist and add, so I'm going to go there and look and see what it looks like. See, so it split out the professional addendum, and it put the residential sale agreement. If you want to look at those documents, and you just hover over the paperclip and you can see it. If you add more than one document to a section, let's say we have or if you're, let's say I had to fix the professional inspection addendum, then I would go back in here and I'd attach the fixed one. I'm just gonna pick one. And then it's gonna be in there too, but you don't necessarily know there's two documents, so if you click on that, this little box is gonna pop up. So if you're clicking and you can't find, you're like, what, it's not doing anything, there might be, the box might show up behind this, so look around. I always minimize to see. And then here I got two different documents. If it was addendums, this is where it's helpful to have them labeled, because if you're looking for a document, let's say you have more than one addendum and you're looking for one for the closing date. If you don't have it labeled that way and it just says addendums, then you're gonna have to search through each one of them, or you can go in the document section and find them. But let's say you uploaded a document to the wrong section. I added this and I didn't want to, then you just click X and it's going to take it off the checklist and it's no longer there. Or you added that one's not right either, you can click the X and it will disappear and it will go back to required. And then in the document section you can see that I split that document up, and now I have the offer here, but I also have the documents separated here, and these have the paper clips, so I know those are the ones that are attached to the checklist. So I can be pretty much guaranteed that they're fully signed and ready to go if you need to send them to somebody. But if you want to look, you can just hover over the I and see what it is. And then one of the things that we do in the TC department, and I would hope everybody would do, is send the documents from Skyslope if you're delivering them, because everything that I'm doing in here is going in the log. So if you click on this log, everything that I've done, it's even just viewing documents shows up in here. So for the TC department, like I was saying, the agent didn't know what was going on in her transactions. I said, well, you need to log into Skyslope so that you can look and see where. If there's emails that come in, the emails will show up here. Every one of the transactions has its own email address. So let's say you're communicating with the agent on the other side. If you copy this email address in your communication and she replies all, then every communication, the emails, and even the documents will go into the log and show up, so you have the emails in your log. So if you don't do it within the transaction, I say at the end of your transaction, please forward all of your emails that are associated with that transaction, because then you have everything, all the communication in one location, and you can go in here and look at the emails and see what was said. You can even forward text messages if you're communicating with your client via text message. Then you can, instead of putting a phone number, you would put this email address and then send it that way. And it will show up as a text in here, and you can actually click on it and look at it and see what it says. The reason why I say that, we've had a couple of agents that have been taken to court, and the thing that saved them was having all of the documentation with them and all the notes. You can even email this log to someone, you can print it out, so if you have to take it to court with you, God forbid you have to do that, but it happens. Then you have everything there. And what she did is she sent all of her text messages there, all of her emails. She had everything in one place, so she didn't have to freak out and worry and look everywhere. So, and also I'd say there's also a way, if let's say you have something you want to make a note about something that was said or a conversation you had or whatever it is, then you click on this enter note, and you can type a note in here and it's going to go in the log, so that if you go back there later, you have all that information right there and you know what your note was about. So you just type in here and you click save, and it will show up in here. So what I mean by, if you're the listing agent, the TC department, we always send the disclosures from Skyslope. So if you ever hire us, please don't send your disclosures over to them. have us do it, because a lot of times agents aren't looking through the disclosures and there's initial missing or something like that, and we might have already gone and got it added to that. So we usually have the more current, up-to-date disclosures in ours because we've already fixed it, so we know that it will, so when we send it to the other agent, then it will be fixed.
As I use the transit, you folks, so I don't wanna send any documents like disclosures or anything, you will.
When you get the offer, it's better for us, that's part of what we do,
Okay.
is when you get the offer, we'll send the disclosures to the other agent for you. And we do that because then I have it documented in the log of when it was sent. And what I do is I send it, and then if someone calls me and says, well, you didn't send it to me, then it has the time and date of everything. I can go on my email and find it and forward that email and say, here it is, this is what I sent you, because that happens a lot to transaction coordinators. We're the fall guy, you know. So I always make sure that I cover my tracks on everything, and I keep track of that, because we want to be able to prove, especially with something that has time sensitive with disclosures, you want to prove that you've sent it to them. Even if they say they didn't get it, you have proof that you've sent it, and you can print a certificate that you sent, or something to prove it, or just forward the email. So that's what I do. So because a lot of times if like I said, if the agent missed a signature, we might have gotten it, and so we send it to them. Another thing that we do is we open escrow, and so from here you can open escrow. You just choose the documents that you're going to send to them, email the escrow officer. Let's say I'm going to send over the residential sale agreement, and I don't need to send that, but if you had the pre-approval, I'd click those documents and then click email, and then you just type it in there, and they're attached on there, and the escrow officer will get those. But if you're not using the TC department, you'll have to do that yourself. We do that for you. We do it in a different way. We have a way where we send a timeline, and it tells them everything about the transactions, and we also add the documents to that, and they get everything. You'll get a copy of it too. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay.
What system do you use for that?
For
the timeline?
it's a jot form thing. It's a internal thing that we use. We just have to fill it out. It makes it easier for us, because instead of typing on a document, we can actually just fill out the questionnaire, and it sends it automatically to them. If you're looking for a timeline to send yourself, there's so many of them. I don't know. You could just Google them and see if there's any, or I have a couple that I used in the previous, before we had this system, that I can send to you too. But that way everybody knows what's going on, and because I've had it happen where you set a timeline and they disagree on when the inspection period ends, because they didn't count right, or I didn't count right, or something like that. So it's kind of good to send those if you can, but if you can't, you just talk about it. So you send the email from here, and I'll send one so you guys can see. And I'm going to send the documents too, so I got everything on there, and I'm going to send. See, it says email sent successfully. So now if I go back in my log, email out, and it actually has the documents. You can actually click on this and see what the email says too. So if you're forgetting what you sent, so that's why you want to make sure you send them, you have proof right there, and it tells you the time and the date that you sent it, so you can either go look at it or do a snapshot of that and send it to them and say, I sent it to you. So I've only had that happen a few times where people said, oh, you didn't send me this, and now our inspection period starts at a different time, and I was able to show them I did send it, and we're on the regular one. There is a transaction summary here that you can use, and it has, like, if you wanted to open escrow. My only thing about that is it puts your client's contact information on there, and I don't see where it showed up here. Oh, here it is. So when I first started in real estate, I worked for a team, and they sent me to San Diego to a Keller Williams transaction coordination class that I had to take. And it was a Keller Williams special, and I was the only person there that was not from Keller Williams. And it was kind of awkward, but one of the things that I took in my mind, and I won't forget, is that Keller Williams, she told us as a transaction coordinator, if the other agent has their client's contact information on anything, then you copy it and keep it, and then I'm gonna start marketing to them. So just be aware that there's agents out there. If you're sending your contact information for your clients and any documentation throughout the sale, they might try to market to your client. I don't know what they'll do because you're already in there, but you just never know. And that was my thought. I thought, well, that's not right because that's not your client. You shouldn't be marketing to them. So just be aware of that and make sure that you don't send that out. Like I see some sale agreements will come across and it has the buyer's email address and stuff like that. And that's just open for somebody to contact your client. So that's just one of the things. So if you wanted to send this kind of tells everything about the transaction, but just make sure you delete. See this, if I had email addresses in here, they would be on this list. And so I would wipe them out before I sent them. And you don't want to share commission information with clients, so you can block that off. But we tried to talk them into it. That's kind of why they have this transaction summary, is when we were doing, we were helping them kind of weed out what they needed to do. I told them, I said, you know, a couple things that would be really great that if you guys had would be a transaction summary and an escrow instructions in here. And that would be really cool. And that's what you could use for an escrow instructions, because it does have the commission information on there, but it doesn't have our address, so we prefer you use our escrow instructions with the address, because you never know where a check's going to get sent if you don't send it or put the right address on there. Any questions? I know I've probably gone through pretty fast, but anybody have any questions? Nope.
I do. Always do.
Yeah.
When you're downloading a listing, of course I'm not doing it, I hired you guys, but what happens with the CC&Rs? There's a big stack of those things, can be 120 pages or whatever. If you're not using a transaction coordinator, you need to scan them and send them over, right?
Yep. You have to, and there's a place to put them in there, in here. If you look on the checklist, there's a place to attach them to the checklist, because the principal broker wants to know that you have them.
Okay.
So you'll want to check, and then you can send them to the buyer from here. I would do that, because then you have that time stamp to prove.
Now that I do use this, I always have the transaction coordinator. We didn't download CC&Rs in my listing that I turned in.
Mm-hmm.
At some point they'll want to see them, but the escrow could send that to them too, right?
I wouldn't rely on escrow, because they don't always have all of them, and a lot of times you'll have to pay for them. Usually you start with the seller and ask them for their access to it, just to save yourself some money. But there are websites that you can go to and try to find their HOA company in there and get them, but some of them cost $300. I mean, it just depends on where it is, but you want to have them uploaded in your transaction so that they're with them, especially, like I said, if you have to go back years later and things have changed, or if there was let's say they had some kind of litigation going on that you weren't aware of, and you want to prove that you didn't have that in the HOA, then you can go back to the file in Skyslope and find those documents.
Yeah, I could talk to Heather.
She just probably hasn't uploaded them yet, but we'll upload them. It's not a required, because nobody's signing it, but the principal broker usually likes to see that you have them in there if you're gonna
Once
if you have
have
an
a
HOA.
transaction, you need to have them in there to send it over.
Yep. If they might be just in the document section. I'm sure they're probably in the transaction, and she didn't attach them to the checklist. But because that's one of the thing. Another thing I told Skyslope is you can only upload one document at a time. So if you have all those HOA documents, you're sitting here literally going one document at a time. I said, can you guys make it to where we can add several documents under one title? And they haven't done it yet, so we're still waiting for that. Any other questions?
Where would you start this from a buyer's side? Everything we've been talking about pretty much been on the seller's side. So where's the buyer's
So you would just go into transactions, manage transactions, because it's not a listing, it's a transaction, and then you do create transaction, and it's just going to start the whole process. You just type in the address. I don't use this MLS. Yeah, so just straight to transactions. I don't use this MLS button because I would just type in the number. I've done the number, typed it in there, and did a search, and it pulled things from the East Coast. So just be aware of that.
Okay.
And so it's similar, just like I did on the, when we got the offer on the listing and I showed you all of that, it's
So
the same
instead of
thing.
using the MLS search, you just go,
I just type the number
information
yeah, I just copy it from the MLS
in. Right.
and put it in there and you're good to go. And then you just go through the process of next and always answer the ones with the red dots. DigiSign, one more thing on DigiSign, if you have DigiSign and you sent something out for signature, you click on the DigiSign button and that will take you to where all your, like in DocuSign, your envelopes are. You're welcome, Marv, thanks. It saves drafts. Let's say I sent a document, this happens quite often, and this is how you can tell who's signed and who's not signed. And if you need to find a time, like an agent will say, how come my document hasn't come back yet? And so this is where we go to look to see, okay, well, it's because your client hasn't even looked at it. So you can actually go in here and look at the history of what happened in this transaction. So you can see that the invitation was sent to this person and here's their email and it tells you the date and the time and there's pages here. If you ever have someone say, well, I need proof of them sent or the time, and you can't figure out how to find a way to prove what the time was, there's a certificate in here that you can view and it tells you when they signed it. You might want to block out your email addresses to them, but you can, and it tells when they downloaded the envelope, when they signed it, everything. So if you have to send that to somebody, I wouldn't choose that. That would be like a last resort, but that's a way to prove that you've, what date and time you sent it to that person and they signed it. So it's all about making sure people know, you know, what's going on. But so if you're gonna just come here and you're gonna start from here, you can use your DigiSign for personal things. We do, so just be aware, we as a company do not have access to any of the agent's DigiSign's accounts. So if you're sending things personally, we have no way. I've had an agent call me and say, well, can't you just get it out of my DigiSign? And I said, no, I don't have access to your DigiSign, so you have to send it to me. So just be aware of that.
So when we sign up and pay for it through, you don't have the access.
We don't have access to your DigiSign. We, as the TC department, have our own DigiSign account, so we can send on your behalf, and it would come from us, and it would be in our DigiSign account. So when it comes back, if we don't put you getting a copy of it, you're not going to get a copy of it. We always do, but then it would be in our DigiSign
But on
account.
the front end, when we're making an offer and this kind of stuff, we would go through this just to put the offer in.
Yep.
You guys wouldn't see it until we get accepted offer.
Right, unless you have us write the offer for you, we'd have that service too. So these are my sent documents. This means that something's not been done, somebody didn't send something, whatever happened. These are my completed documents, so all the ones that are completed in here. If you want to upload the document, you can just click on it, and then you just go over here to this little download, and it will download to your desktop if you want to get it. If you want to print it, you can print from here. It's a little tricky with the printing directly from DigiSign because they put all this coding on the documents and sometimes your printer won't like that. So if it doesn't print, that's why. You might have to save it to your desktop as a PDF and then it will print.
Can you sign up for the DigiSign right on the website?
You just send me a ping or one of the corporate people a ping and we'll set you up for it. We just turn it on.
It also, if you have a listing and the deal falls through, all you have to do is go to where you had transaction and then cancel.
I'll go to that on the one that I was starting on. See this cancel transaction? I think you guys can see that. I'm not sure, but if you can't, let me know. You click cancel transaction. So I'm going to do this for you because I'm not going to do this. See what it says, are you sure you want to cancel? And then reason for cancellation, and you always have to put something in there. I'll say a sale fail, or you know, the seller doesn't want to do it anymore. It says this cancellation has been reviewed and approved. This is new. No, I don't. So now here's where if your listing is canceled and you want to turn it back to an active listing and you get rid of that sale paperwork, then you would say yes, reactivate it for me. And what it's going to do is it'll go back into the listing document side, listing side. That's where you'll need to go to see it. And it's just going to sit there till you have another offer, and then you do the whole thing all over again except contract, and it goes back to the transaction side. So, and then that way, like I said, you don't have to have the principal broker review all your documents, reload them up, everything. It just saves you a lot of time that way. if you say, let's say the listing's done, it's all done, then you don't want to reactivate it. And then I do cancel transaction. You'll still be able to see it, but now it's under a different category in your Skyslope account. So then what you do is you'll go over here and I go to cancel transactions, and that's where you can find them. There's a time limit, I think, on how long it will allow you to reactivate it. So let's say oh my gosh, I canceled my listing and I didn't want to do that. Then you can go into canceled contracts, and here's transactions up here and listings are down here, and I could reactivate any of these listings. So if you, let's say they take it off the market and for a long time, then they come back, you can reactivate that file and then put the new documents in there and go forward that way. But if you have questions about that, then just give us a call. Working documents. This is where it saves all of the documents. So you have rejected offers. If you have a rejected offer, we have an email address that you send it to. We don't want you to upload it into Skyslope. This is all the rejected offers, I think. Let me find that email for you. If you're in Portland, it's portlandrejected@skyslope.com. Forget what one. Oh, here it is. And see, so if you go into, I went under, you don't get the admin sign. So if you're not sure, let me know. Send me a ping and I'll send you the email address that you send it to if you're in a different office. But for the Portland office, for here, we use the portlandrejected@skyslope.com. And so you just send and that means even if people have signed, you just send it to that, and it stores it in a different part of Skyslope. So if you ever have to go back again and look for it for some reason, or somebody wanted to see something, then you can go in there and find it there. Any other questions? Nope. Archive is, so when we get the check and everything, we archive your transaction. So if you had to add a document after the fact, then you go into the archive section and look for it if you can't find it anywhere else, and it will be there. And it has, what we do is when we archive a transaction, we upload any documents that we get from escrow. We upload the check that came from escrow. We upload the check that we send to you if we get a check, or it has the receipt of the ACH that's been sent to you. So you can go in there and look. It shows up on the checklist in, well, I guess I could choose one of these. So in the checklist, this is an archive transaction, but I can go in here and I can see right here, you'll see final HUD. Oh, this was an old one. And it will say office docs in there, and that will have the PDF of all the paperwork that we add to it. If you have a referral, there is a place on the checklist to add referrals too. So please make sure you let Nikki know about your referrals, because if we get a check and we send it out to you and then, oh, I forgot there's a referral on that might cost you a little bit. I don't know if she charges anything, but it causes a lot of headache to unwind everything after that, especially if you get an ACH to your bank and she's already sent it. There's no way to pull it back, so you might have to, so just make sure any documentation about your transactions, please communicate in the commission tab about it, or send Nikki an email, because she oversees a lot. She has a folder with all referral forms if you're expecting one and stuff like that. So make sure that she has a copy of that so that she knows. Like I said before in the other meeting, we get checks a lot. You'd be surprised how often we get a check with no paperwork, no name, nothing, and we don't know whose it is. And we had one, I think not too long ago, that came in was like $15,000 and nobody claimed it. I'm like, wouldn't somebody just want that check? I think they'd call us and say, but you'd be surprised. And I'm like, well, I guess we get to split it between the staff. Any other questions? Well, thank you for coming. I'm sorry I kept you too long, but I know it's important. This is the one tool that you really should at least log in and look at it. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you wanted me to show you something about base camp
Yeah,
afterwards, right?
you were gonna just
Send you the
me-
email.
Send me that email again.
Okay. Let me go in my office really
Okay.
quick and then I'll have a screen. You can follow me in there if you want to.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.